It's my pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Tom Smith. Tom's helped us for roughly a decade. We met through electric fences, I believe.
Shocking as that is.
And he's helped us with our bear practices to make them more research supported. I don't know why, but I get invited on these bear retreats with Tom and Steve Herrero, and we just talk bears and hang out. And I can't believe I get paid to do that. It's just an amazingly great time. Tom spent about 25 years in Alaska as a bear ecologist for the U.S. Biological Survey and then the U.S. Geologic Survey. And he's currently a professor in wildlife sciences down at Brigham Young University, BYU's in Provo, Utah. So he drove up yesterday, and thank you so much for your time and your expertise, Tom.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the invite. As you probably know, biologists usually can't get them to shut up about what they're doing. So John's going to be my timer over there. He's going to make me be quiet. Something I don't really have in my talk that I want to start with, you can't really see the screen. If you really want PowerPoints, you're going to have to bring your, get way up here, but I'll try to talk you through what the content is. But you know, John and I were talking about how our own perceptions of bears and bear safety evolves. I was talking with Drew about that, and it does. And the lecture I give today would be quite a little bit different than I would have maybe 5 years ago and so forth. But I think I'm getting more on point, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, because I can ramble pretty terribly. Students love it, but a lot of times it's not really helpful for exam time. So what I want to focus on today is just a kind of a little talk about bears and bear safety, because it is something that you need to be concerned about. But it's like the last night Christopher Barnes, I think his talk was just an excellent talk. What a great speaker, talking about risk. And when he showed the risk of rock climbing compared to other things, bears are even much less risky than that, but it's one of those risks that you need to acknowledge. You need, and it's, I think, largely you can deal with it. It's something that there's no excuse to go in bear country and to set them up and you up for a problem. And that's basically, as John pointed out, I've done work for about 20 years with Dr. Stephen Herrero, who is the internationally recognized expert in bear attacks, and Stephen's a great friend and a good mentor. But I think one of the lines that threads through all these incidents, he and I have a monograph coming out on bear attacks in Alaska. We have about 650 incidents in there that we've analyzed, and the one common thing in there is, wittingly or otherwise, people just set these bears up. Now, if it was different, you know, I'd say it was different. I mean, if they were like little Tasmanian devils spinning around the landscape, striking at random, then I'd say that, but they're not. You find at the bottom of it is somebody doing something either knowingly stupid or ignorantly, you know, stupid. But so that's the real tragedy in these incidents is they, you know, people sometimes are dead and other times severely injured, and it's just heartbreaking that they are avoidable. And on the other side of the coin, not to equate a bear life with a human life, it depends on where your philosophy of all is, but it's a waste of a life on either way. There's no reason to be blowing bears away because you're ignorant. And I think I would guess, one thing I like about teaching at BYU, and I'm sure all of you love, is there's such energy in these students, and they're young, they're on top of their game, they want to learn, they're not jaded or anything, they're great to work with. So I think that what I'm going to talk about here, hopefully you can take it home and think about it. And of course, John will be a contact. He's very good. I was kind of surprised he invited me because he knows a lot about bears and bear safety, but this will be an opportunity for me to talk. Now, one thing that's changed my approach to bear safety, I got a call about 4 years ago from Elena Hansen. You can Google her if you want. It's kind of so voyeuristic, isn't it? Google, I'll Google you. You know, I got a letter the other day. It says, "You don't look like your Facebook." I said, "No, I don't." But Elena didn't either. Her face looked like a Spalding softball, you know, all stitched together. And what happened to that poor woman? She was on a ranch in California and was doing some work and looked up, and here's this black bear, you know, a couple 100 pounds. Actually, maybe not even 150. Looked like a big dog, and it was sitting there watching. There was no surprise element with this. It was simply sizing her up. And and it came down in a rush. It just made its decision. When she looked at it and kind of gigs up, you know, bear's got to now act. The prey is aware of the predator, and it just 3 springs and was on her. Well, fortunately, she had 2 large dogs that galvanized them into action, and they basically saved her. But the poor woman got bit. And in bear fighting, you know, most everything I'll talk about, what you're seeing is a system that's evolved bear. I mean, humans, you know, we've been around a long time, but not long enough to really become a player in their strategies. So what you see bears do is what they do to each other. How they react to you is how, I mean, you know, they have kind of one set of tricks they use of strategies, and so it's a bear thing. When they fight, they don't come up there and like this, you know, they come up and they bite. And it's like dogs. Watch dogs when they fight. It's face. They're biting. And so bears naturally go for our face. I think that's our weapon threat. And that's why in this 650 incidents I mapped out on the human body where the injuries are, and it's 4.5 times more likely to be bit in the head and the neck. That's how they fight. Well, if you have a thick dermal shield and heavy musculature and fat, it's like, that's annoying. Don't bite me there. With humans, it's like you're dead because we're heavily innervated and vascularized, and they just take a chunk out. And that happened, 2 years ago in California, one of Doug Seuss's friends, the trainer in Hollywood, and I'm going down a path, but it's a fun one. And this guy has a grizzly that's his trained bear, and his brother-in-law wanted a photo, and the bear was irritated. When they're irritated, took a nip, and the guy was dead. It tore out the carotid artery. And, you know, on a bear, that's like, you annoy me. With a human, it's like, you're dead. So Elena got it, and basically, a long story short, she was calling me because I was a bear biologist, and she was really mad at bear biologists. She didn't even know me personally. She was just looking for somebody to get even with. And she said she was upset because she said the message that she'd gotten her whole life was, look, and you guys have heard this, there's bears out there, but they don't want anything to do with you. They'll run 99 times, and that is the message. That, in fact, that is true. But what happens when you sell it that way? People are less prepared. They go, oh, well, okay. And they move on to something else. And that's a problem. What you want to build is not fear, but respect. And they're 2 different things. But disrespect is a big problem. So anyway, what I tell people now when I give bear safety talks, I'll say, here's the bottom line. In the Wasatch Mountains, I do black bear research there. There's 2,500 black bears. I absolutely, so I just let it go with that. I'll say, I'll absolutely promise you there are bears there that will kill you. If they see you, they don't have to be sick, hungry, weak, afflicted. They're a predator, you're a potential prey, and if it's one-on-one, you will lose. So they'll kill you. And it always gets me in the paper. It's like, oh, God, we don't know what's wrong. It was maybe sick or hungry or it was old. How about predator? I mean, that's what they do. They eat things for a living. We don't have to, and they dismantle them. They're very good at that. So we don't have to invoke some kind of weird thing. That's what they do. We're just lucky that they mostly are very risk averse. What I've learned is you don't get to be an old bear by doing stupid things. So they tend to size things up. And humans, we tend to, you know, we're humans. That's a big problem when you try to get inside a bear's head. I don't know what they think. When I look at their brain, it's so different than ours. You know, the olfactory lobes are 10 times bigger than ours. So we can kind of guess. And we do gross dissection. The nasal passages, they have about, oh God, 150 times more nerve endings. We know scent is bigger. Oh, John, you're going to have to help me. So I've run into lots of grizzly bears, polar bears. I work with grizzly, polar, and black. Right now, I've been around them all. I mean, it's not like, you know, people come up and say, how many times have you been attacked? And I'll say, well, before we go down that path, do you get on an airplane and go to the captain, hey, how many times have you crashed this plane? You know, it's like, no, I haven't been attacked. That's a sign of doing the right things. Because if you say I haven't been attacked, they go, oh, geez, this guy's a loser. No, the guy's a winner. I don't piss him off. So anyway, where am I, John? Where am I, John? You got to help me. Principles, I know, but there's a principle here I'm trying to get at. So it'll come to me. Anyway, so I think that these animals attack people. So what we need to do is say that there is risk because there are bears for no other reason than they're predators that may see you as an opportunity. You need to be aware of that. So a basic axiom I go by in bear country is this: I do not let large, hairy, four-legged things make significant decisions for my life. That's not a hard one. And that means that if I have to enter bear country, and these are my basic, okay, we're going to skip ahead there. Yeah, they're cute. I mean, they are cute. Oh, this is my guy. He didn't help me. So people ask me what a bear thinks, and I tell people, you know, if a bear could talk, I don't think we'd have an idea what they're talking about, even if they had good English. And people go, what is that? And I said, well, let's say you were blind, and I had perfect English, and I could talk to John about what vision is. He can understand the words, but he doesn't get it. And I think because of the way they're wired, they, you know, their experience is so different. So we can get out of their heads. But I know this much. I walk up on a grizzly bear, and they'll stand up. I mean, me to you, and they'll see me. And what are they doing? They're sniffing, they're waving their head. They can see, but they're smelling. What they'll do is they'll circle around, and because their number one sense they lock in on is scent. That's what they trust. They'll get downwind, they'll go like that, bam, they're out of there. Okay, same with me. If I'm walking around a patch of vegetation and I smell something, what do? I don't, oh, that's a dead deer. I'm doing this. I'm looking in like this because what? My primary sense is of vision. So we're really different that way. And people go, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, yeah, they're bears. They're not you. They're not. Okay, so we got a lot of ground to cover here. Part of the problem we all have, and I've got bear lore is everywhere. I put up a thing here, Outdoor Life, bear book, the Outdoor Life bear book. It's just horror stories. And then the cover of Outdoor Life. I don't know if you can see these. They're just the bears eating people, and bear attacks, and bear tails, and all this. And the problem is, you know, we basically really love our monsters. We love these little things. They're the tingly fascination around the campfires, and people want to keep them alive. But there's a lot of misinformation there. Okay, basic rules of bear safety. I'm going to hit this because this is what I tell people. Number one thing is, and you all know this stuff, but I tell them, never enter bear country without a deterrent option. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anywhere. And they'll say, well, there's not very many bears here. Well, it only takes one mauling to ruin your whole day, I think. You know, I mean, come on. If there's one bear there, that's enough to be the intelligent, supposedly higher intelligent organism and equip yourself with bear spray. Or, you know, if you need a gun, take a gun. But you got to have something because you one-on-one with the bear, even a 100-pound bear, you cannot beat them. I had a woman once who's just badgering me. She goes, well, what do I do if I encounter one and I don't have bear spray? I said, well, you have bear spray. She goes, no. You don't get it. If I don't have it, and I said, but you will have it. You know, like that. And so she goes, no, what do I do if I don't? And I said, ma'am, let's just stop this. Here's the thing you're asking me. I'm going to put it in terms that we can all understand. You're saying, I'm in a truck, I don't have a seatbelt because I'm not going to wear it. What's the best way to be ejected through the windshield? It's stupid. I said, it's stupid. You're wasting my time. Another woman, this is bad. My wife won't go to my bear lectures anymore. So this woman says, oh my God, I heard that during the mating season, they're the worst. What do I do? I said, well, if one comes after you, just ride it out. My wife goes, I can't believe you said that. I said, well, that's a stupid question. Okay. I don't know. Let's move on. So, all right. So you got to have a deterrent, okay? We're not going to have a conversation if you say I'm not going out there with a deterrent. Because, come on. If you don't care about yourself, you got to care about the bear. Take Treadwell, whom we all know, and I knew him personally quite well. That was one of my research areas. John's been there. Timothy didn't carry a deterrent. And I said, Timothy, look, if you love bears that much, and I know you do, when and if you get killed, they're going to kill those bears. And they did. And that was a waste of life all around. So, if you don't care about yourself, care about the animal. Okay, everybody in my book has to carry their own deterrent. The reason for that is the bear tends to cycle in and get the person without the deterrent. That's Murphy's Law. Now, there may be some ways to deal with that, but the other thing is I've had interviewed people who were on a 5-day trip with their wife or spouse or friend or whatever, and 2 days in they have an encounter, they spray the bear. Now they're planning to go another 6 days. They don't have any deterrent left, so they're just unhinged, you know, they're just, oh God. So they just run out. So you need more than one can, and you need multiple cans. I just have everybody carrying. That way, nobody's trying to say, who's got the spray? You can't be doing that. The other thing is it has to be immediately available. I mean, it's got to be, it's got to be on your chest or on your pack strap. It's got to be right here somewhere, because when these things happen, they happen very fast. 75% of the encounters that I studied were within 70 feet, and 50% were within 30 feet. I mean, that's too close. I mean, you can't even get this thing out. So we'll talk about that a little. So you've got to have it available. Several people were killed with them. You know, I mean, still in the shrink wrap. Oh my God, bear tags start chewing. What kind of craziness? The lawyers that were both killed on the Hula Hula River in Alaska, the Huffmans, they had bear spray still in the container, the shrink. What the heck? Okay, other rules, you know, always be alert. That makes sense. So if you're in bear country, pay attention, for crying out loud. No headphones, none of that junk, you know. But I work with Boy Scouts, so no, you know, I don't let them bring them anyway. But the point is, you got to pay attention. When it's bear country, the stakes are different. Okay, and then I say make noise appropriately. The reason is bears are keenly tuned into what's going on. Why? Because the biggest enemy is another bear, and unless you're the biggest guy on the block, you better be paying attention, or you're going to end up with some problem. They're really not one world. They fight each other all the time, and it's just the way it is. It's like with wolves. The greatest mortality factor on wolves is wolves. On bears, it's bears. So they're paying attention, but if we don't telegraph our presence, that's the problem. That's why all these encounters happen at such a close distance. For some reason, the bear was not aware of the person there. So, you know, God forbid the people with. I brought a bear bell. I actually did. I'll show you. I did research with these bear bells. I mean, these things are so obnoxious. I hope you don't use them. They're terrible. I mean, because wouldn't that just drive you up a wall? Plus, they don't really do anything. But I mean, I gave that talk once, and this woman from Denali Ranger, she goes, "Well, I mean, they do in our park. They know the bear bell. They know that's hikers." I said, well, somebody has to teach them Bear Bell 101, which means at some point they got to make the association. If you want to be the guy doing that, have at it. But the other thing is they have babies, who don't know what a bear bell is, and they have immigrants, so that kind of screws your system. So I don't think I'd do that. So make noise. So what I mean by that, if I was hiking through here and this was Yellowstone, I wouldn't be making any noise. I'd be enjoying the birds and nature. I don't want to scare everything. I don't want this tidal wave of wildlife running away from me. But if I'm going down to this river here and I know it's a salmon creek and there's bears, you know, I'm going to come up there and hey, like that. We had fun. John's been on some of my nutty adventures, and we did one. Steve Herrero and me. We walked. There was 100 bears on a 1.2 mile river. 100 bears. So we sent Herrero down in there making no noise. And it was like, he walked, he had a radio, says, I'm done with this. But they're really good bears. They don't do anything to you. They're good bears. But then we did it with making noise. So he flushed a whole lot of bears. I mean, he flushed them at close range. Then we went through going, hey, never saw a bear. I mean, it makes sense. I've got a paper out from Kenai Fjord where it was a lot of fun. We studied their response to humans. So we intentionally found all the bears we could, and we'd get 2 by 2 and we just walk in on them, taking behavioral data on where what we call the overt response is, and when they first eating their grass or whatever, they start looking. So that's where they're aware. They may have been aware before that, but they were telegraphing at that point to us outwardly that they were aware. Then we go till we hit the flushing distance, which, you know, would push them out. And of course, some of these big males, it's like, bring it on, little man. We get within about 15 meters of them and say, now we're done. We're done with this deal. We had our bear spray. So if they know you're there, so my point of that was, in that paper, bears that weren't aware of us, when they first became aware and they hadn't been, they flush, they just run. If they see us from afar, they don't flush. Anyway, you got the point. So make noise appropriately. If you confront a bear, this is what I tell people to do simultaneously. The first one is, of course, never stop. You never back up, never run. I mean, you know, let's face it, 44 foot a second on one of these animals, you're going nowhere. And I looked in my database, I had 44 instances, and that was 100 incidents ago, so I need to recalculate, but 44 times when a person and a bear found themselves face to face. Okay, they're face to face. Who knows why, but there they are. The bear has a suite of options, the person has a suite of options. It's a fun database to mess with. So I can tell you, biting them, punching them, poking them, screaming at them, bad, because they're really good at that game. They'll go, okay. but you know, so brown bear, grizzlies don't respond to aggression very well. That's how their world works. But back to my data set. So I looked at the number of people who chose the whole world of things to do to run. Out of 43 instances, 39 of them, they chased them down and caught them. So I would say that's a fairly good data set that says don't do it. Also, backing up. When you do this, that's in their world, that says I'm submissive, I'm passive, you're running the show. Bad thing to do. Don't do that. And the reason is because and people, this is where the human is a problem. You say, well, God, I'm just a human, I don't have teeth and claws and all that. They don't know that. They don't know that. And I found dead bears, you know, with porcupine quills all through their faces where they messed with a porcupine, and some that had quills that didn't die. They learned very early on that size isn't necessarily a good predictor. So they're very cautious. I've had them full on charge me, and I just stand there because what are you going to do? You know? And just stand, take your whooping. But they get about to that pull, and they always, like that, they'll stop, and they start huffing, and you know, it's a lot of fun. But the thing is, they're not gonna touch you. But that's in their world. And you watch, you'll see a 300-pound female run off a 1,000-pound male. These males just tuck tail and run. Could the male kill them? They could, but somehow, in the wisdom of the wilderness, it's like, it's not worth taking the facial bites and the rips in the hide. No, it ain't worth it. There's food over there. They just run. And so size is back to these rules. If you confront a bear, you stop and stand your ground. Never back up. At the same time, you ready your deterrent. So let's say I'm hiking, I see a bear. It's like, I've got this thing out. That's what I should be doing. Okay? At the same time, I'm saying if I have hikers, hey, bear. That means the guy that yells it, you're coming together, because in over 1,200 incidents, Steve and I have never seen a single time when two people calmly stood their ground and the bear touched them. Never once. And the odds are against that. The bears are risk evaluators. They go, screw that. I'm outnumbered. Even when they weigh 1,000 pounds, they don't do it. And people go, oh, no. I know 10 people got attacked. Yeah, 10 wild chickens running for their life. And the bear, or Boy Scouts will get it. No, I know a troop of 6. Yeah, the front lead kid was running down the mountain. The bear just sees one person running at it, and it takes them out. Doesn't know there's 6 more behind him. It doesn't care. So the point is, when they're grouped up, that's just intimidating. So if you have 2, 3, 4 people together, side by side, presenting this front with your deterrence, I'm not going to guarantee 0 risk, or risk of it's close. I mean, it's just close. So this is, and of course, you'd call out and tell others to group. And then at that point, you let the bear decide. I mean, let's face it, they're running the show. Yeah, they're running the show. So you stop and let them, and they'll do this. They'll go. That means they're scared, is what that means. People go, oh God, they're getting ready for dinner. No, they're afraid. I think what's happened is this. You watch dogs. My dogs do it. We'll be driving in traffic. They get their heads out the window. They're so cute. They're like these little bears. I got it. They're a little bear. Their face is a little different, but from the eyes out, it's a little bear. And so they'll sit there and they'll go. Well, they're trying to get the scent up into they've got 9 inches of olfactory passage there, and they're trying to go, they're throwing the molecules, and they're going, what is this? What is this? You know, so I think what's happened is that it's evolved into kind of an alarm call. You'll see mothers do that. Like that, and the cubs immediately run to the mother. It's got signal value. But at the same time, it just means they're nervous. Well, being around a nervous grizzly bear isn't good, but it doesn't mean that they're like prelude to attack or anything. It means it's nervous. So we let them work it out. I've had them really close working it out, but they work it out. And you know, and mentally, you know, I was out there one day. We were doing a study of invertebrate use by bears and published it. It was a great paper. I wrote it. What can I say? So I'm just kidding. So we're digging this hole, and these bears are out there eating clams, and all of a sudden the guy with me goes, I look behind you, and I can take the shovel. And this big female with two-year-olds, so it looks like a pack of 3 bears. You could touch them on the nose. And I looked at them, and they weren't even angry. They were just looking like, what is in that hole? Like that. And so I just step back, and they go up and they look in the hole like, yeah, he's got the mother of clams in there or something. And then we just let them go. I mean, this is Katmai, where, and we'll get into that, but their personal space is very small. The point is, you let them make the move. Now, after, what do you say? 30 seconds, a minute? You know, they haven't done anything, then it's time to start collectively move off. That's okay. For a couple reasons. They may have cubs right over the hill. They might have an animal carcass. You could stand there all day playing the standoff if you want. That's not a good idea, but you do give them a chance, the first option to move. If they charge, then it's give it to them. If they don't, which most times they cess it, they get out of there. Again, they're risk averse. They don't want a problem. Okay, so I think you got all that. Now, then you leave the area, reroute accordingly. Now, this is what I call unsubstantiated and otherwise dangerous advice. Wave your arms overhead, look big. What is that? A deer with rubber antlers? What is that? Now I know Knowles is, but the point is, I'll say no. Let's just say, here's the problem. You should be doing this, not this. So you need to focus on the problem. People say make it look big. Believe me, I mean, I'm not a bear, but that ain't gonna help. I mean, it's not gonna help. Getting big is maybe standing with your friends, but you shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this, or if a gun's your option, then that's what you should do. Bear spray, of course, is a better one. So I think that's nonsense. I study this all the time. Don't look a bear in the eye. Where's this coming from? What? You better dang well be watching that bear. And somebody goes, well, I agree with that, but don't look at me. Oh, I'm sure the bear can tell I'm looking at its rump over its face. Come on, this is silly. It's silly. You better watch the bear. So that's nonsense. Another lay down, play dead. Of course, that if you do that, you won't have to play dead. You'll be dead. So and people go, oh no. No. The problem with that is, here's the whole thing, and I think you guys as instructors deal with it. If you just load people up with a bunch of crap, it all has equal priority, and it just rock tumbles in there. And when they get in a bind, it's like, whoa, play that. You know what I mean? It's like, what? You want to keep it simple. If we had to do that, I'd be with that. But it's so lots of advice is bad, because now what you've done, if you've overloaded their minds with stuff that isn't important, and it competes for priority with stuff that is. So I'm just saying, lay down, play dead is like, you go, well, if it's a black bear, there's a brown. Just forget that. Don't lay down. Okay? So if it's a grizzly bear, my crew, if a bear charges, I tell them the only time you go to the ground is if it knocks you to the ground. If it's a full-on charge, you're not going to be laying down. You're going to be like that. And if you look at my data, it's going to work. In the very few instances where bears injured the people, and we'll get into that, it was just a swipe or a bite, which is bad, but it isn't like they fed on them. And the point is, stay off the ground, get up. I was in Katmai, and a lady, we got a call, oh, there's a person down. You know, we run out there, and this lady's laying on the ground, the bear's over here. She goes, what are you doing? The bear's there. I said, get the hell up. She stands up and runs away. So what are you doing? We're playing dead. Stupid. So, I mean, you wouldn't do that. The other thing was black bears. So if a grizzly were to carry through, you're spraying, you guys all have backpacks, so I tell my crew, you turn into it, so if they slap or bite, it's going to hit that. If they knocked you to the ground, then take a defensive position. But I don't think that'll ever happen. I don't think it'll happen. Okay, so if it did, that's the time to play dead, but you're already down, so just stay down. With black bears, same thing. Stand your ground. If they come at you, just spray them, and then, you know, just stay with it. So I think that's bad advice. We had a couple killed, or a woman killed in Canada. A horrible story, I won't tell, but they play dead, and the bear ate the woman. And the guy ran for help. It's terrible. Talk to the bear. I love that one. Like, what is that? You go, well, tell it you're not a bear. Tell it you're human. The thing can identify 300 plants, and you think it doesn't know I'm just a hairless bear? I mean, if it makes you feel better, fine, but you're not hearing it from me. You need to be focused with your friends. If you want to talk with them, certainly don't shout, hey! You know, that's really bad, because it startles them. Okay, using bear bells, I think it's just another sad thing. Now, when I actually published a thing on this, it's really, REI, you know, in Anchorage, I went in there for an interview. On the one pegboard, they do $50,000 a summer in bear bells. Yeah, so when you take on that industry, you better have some data. But my point is, so I've kind of left them alone. I'm kind of a chicken. But we'll look at my bear bell data. It's like, uh-oh, that don't work. So anyway, my point here is filling people's heads with bad advice or irrelevant trivia is distracting, misguided, and dangerous. So bear safety is very simple, right? You got the little rules there. Okay, sort of thing. Now, a couple things on it. How are we doing on time, John? I got 11:08 on this, but I don't think it's right, is it? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so a couple research findings. Okay, in '98 I noticed in Katmai National Park, and I published a paper, it's up on the screen there, that bears were doing some weird things. And this one guy, you know, long story short, these are all bears rolling in bear spray. And what happened, this is inert, by the way. And this airplane pilot I personally knew, he was just terrified. He goes, oh my gosh, my airplane's going to eat my airplane. So this guy, because there's all these hundred of bears there at Q Lake. So he takes this, I didn't tell him to do it, and he sprays the toes on his floats. It's got rubber and you tow your plane in. And even if you turn its tail in, you know, he didn't do that. I don't know why, but he didn't do it. Because it's cloth and he didn't want him ripping that up too. So he sprayed it the next morning, we come down, the toes are all ripped to pieces. And I saw him and he goes, well, at least it would have been worse. Well, maybe so. So I have a blind on a building right there. We're doing a study, some other study. And I saw this bear walk into this cove, and all of a sudden it falls on its back. That's what these pictures are. And the bear's just rolling. I don't know if you can see this. I actually have video of it, but we'll put it up there, see if it works. This is what a bear does when it gets on a scent rub. It's rubbing its head like it. They're just like big dogs. And he's doing this thing going, what in the... So I jump off there. I hadn't really seen the behavior. All the carnivora do it. And, you know, cats do it, dogs do it, wolverines, foxes, on badgers. They all scent rub. And wolves and so forth, and bears. And so I went down, and here's the rope off that guy's float plane. I could see the red from the bear spray, and I thought, ooh. So I took a bunch of that, and I sprayed on the ground with a stake bite, climbed up there, and man, oh man, they beat a trailer lap. They're just fighting over who can roll on that, and I thought, ooh. So I called the park guy, Park Service ranger, comes out, hey, Jason, get down here, you gotta see this. So he comes down, he's got his bear spray, and he jumps up there, and the next bear comes in and just starts rolling. He goes, why is it doing that? I said, because there's bear spray on the ground. The guy goes, I got a pork chop on my hip. Pulls it off. I said, no. Wait a second. I said, I think this is the analogy. We like milkshakes, but we don't like them sprayed up our nose. So I think that's what it is. So then when I published the paper, we did a whole bunch of this. Man, I had bears running at a dead run from a quarter mile. It was pretty amazing. I could burst it out and then watch, and they just waving their hands, come right in there. It was pretty funny. The bear spray companies kind of dropped me off their Christmas card list after that. Yeah. Well, you know, the funny thing, in the media didn't get it right. Spray works great, but it's just that you don't misuse it. So you understand that. Okay, so then I went on with Steve Herrero, and we published it. We decided to look, in 2007, we looked at all the bear spray incidents in Alaska. We looked at 83 from 85 to 2006. Probably old news for all you, but if you hadn't seen the paper, it just really showed you that basically, I think I have the highlights here of the thing, was that it was effective against brown grizzly bears, 92%. Now this effective means it stopped their behavior. Doesn't mean they ran away. So that doesn't mean 8% of the people got mauled. It means the bear persisted in the annoying behavior. Okay, so I'll define that. On black bears, 90%, and why it was a little lower is because black bears are usually annoying because there's a food reward or a food attraction. So if you don't get rid of it, they continue to be annoying because it beats going out and working for a living. They'd rather get a cooler, which is like, you know, holding up a 7-Eleven. So polar bears, 100% on polar bears. We tried it on polar bears. They run like crazy. They're really, I mean, anything that big with claws and teeth they have to reckon with, but they're scary cats. If I had to be stuck with any bear, it'd be a polar bear. People go, oh no, they're the stalker killers. Well, they need a new job description if that's the case, because they killed one person 100 years in Alaska. So, I mean, I'm not saying turn my back on them. I'm saying it is not in their inclination. I mean, I don't look like a ring seal, and that's what they're just Catholic in their diets. And if you're not a ring, now I wouldn't get in a black sleeping bag and lay on the ice. That's you get screwed there. Okay, so 98% of the people in this, 156 people, 98% were uninjured. Only 3 suffered minor injuries, all by grizzly bears. And they were in full-on charges when they let loose. There was enough momentum, it ran the person over, but it kept going. So they basically got just, you know, freight trained, but it wasn't like, you know, so that's pretty impressive. I think 14% reported negative side effects, you know, where it came back and burned them. They said, well, that's not good. And I said, well, leave, go. When you spray the bear, what are you doing? Stand around going, oh, gee, they're going to get out of there. So obviously, you know, leave. But anyway. There's one of my favorite stories, which is bad. Right by my cabin, a guy and his wife were hiking, and this bear showed up. It's horrible. It charged his wife, and he ran. and it took her down. And as soon as he ran, the bear dropped her and then took him out. And I'm sure on the ground she's looking, going, yes. This scary cat. His later thing he said was they left the bear spray in the car. He was going to get it. Yeah, divorce court. So anyway, okay, so just out now, I think some of you seen in the current issue of Outside, there's a whole article on my research there on firearms and bears. And of course, Outside did a pretty good job. Sports Afield, I think, will do a better job. But, you know, as biologists, we kind of have I think, an obligation to work with the media, but it's a multi-headed serpent. You got to really watch them because they just want that juicy thing that's not really appropriate, which they did on a couple of paper articles. So we looked at 270 incidents in Alaska. Handguns were 84% effective. I mean, and long guns were 76, so rifle, shotguns 70. That means three-quarters of them come out okay. 25% didn't. So that's bad. We identified why guns fail to protect the user, which, I could tell you everything from, like a 300. I mean, people are out hunting moose, they see a bear. I mean, they're veritable cannons. Oh, that'll kill a bear. Yeah, but you can't use it to kill a bear. They're scoped. They can't get them to, they're bolt action. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong. And when they happen at 30 feet and the bear's coming, the bear almost always gets there before the gun's trigger's pulled. It's just, and some of the gun aficionados think I've got Greeny, damn Greeny. I saw that in Salt Lake Tribune is out after our guns. It's like, read the article, you idiots. It works mostly. I don't have a problem. But if it doesn't work, let's talk about why it's not good. And so that's what the article does. This was the weird thing. We had 1/4 less, it's less, 12% of the people, 40 different people did not use their guns. They had them but didn't use them. It ranged from people who said, I have a moral objection to ever shooting a bear. That's a heck of a time to find that out when the guy's taking care of your party. And that happened. Another one that didn't use the gun, it was an Austrian hunter. He threw the gun at the guy and said, you shoot it. It was weird too because the bear took the guide out. It's horrible, but I think it's funny. And then, because I'm sure that was not a happy camp later. So, and then there's some people that the gun was like, they couldn't get it off the shoulder. I mean, so they never shot, but what was interesting when I compared those who shot and those who didn't, the injury rates for number killed, number injured, and number not injured were exactly the same. So, so what's that mean? Well, we can talk about longer, but what it does mean for sure, guns do not give a clear advantage. And I don't have to sell that to this group, but we have a lot of people in Alaska, Park Service, they just hand out guns. This article says you may want to rethink that. Because it's one thing to take them out and shoot for 2 hours at paper targets at 25 yards. It's a whole different thing when the paper target's 300 pounds and the target's chasing you. That's a problem, and I think what we found is people overrate their competency. Oh yeah, I'm really good with a gun. Oh, are you? Well, we'll see when King Kong's chasing you how good you are, and that's the problem. They're too nervous. So what was really cool was some of the new statistics. We used a multiple logistic regression. All it does is does things our brains can't do. And we took all the variables from were they hiking alone, were they in a group, were they making noise appropriately, were they in heavy brush, were they avoiding that, were they doing, in other words, best practices in bear country, or and what kind of gun did they have, how, all this stuff, how many shots they taken, all that. What was really awesome about the 4 top models, which in that statistical arena, that's usually what you look at, the top models, had nothing to do. So for the models for predicting success had nothing to do with firearms. Firearms weren't even in there. In other words, having a gun, pistol, shotgun, rifle, how many shots, caliber, that didn't have anything to do with the outcome. It's all about how you carry yourself in bear country. That's a great message. So it has more to do with how you carry yourself than the firearm that you carry. Okay? So that's a good finding. So this is, I just got the summary here. This really makes them mad. Which is basically, I was working at Katmai. It really bothered me that, the national parks now allowing firearms isn't about bear protection. It's about NRA or Second Amendment rights and all that. I understand that. That's fine, but we now have people with guns in parks. And so at Katmai, that really, I don't know. It's going to be bad. because somebody's going to misread one of these brown bears and shoot them or wound them or something like that. So I think this paper coming out now is really important. We're getting a lot of good feedback from the Park Service that wants to tell their people, hey, so here's some summary. I don't know if you can see it. For bear spray, had 71 incidents, 175 people. Firearms, 289 incidents, almost 500 people. Basically, the comparison was bear spray, 3 human injuries. Firearms, 113 injuries, 23 dead bears, or 23 wounded bears, and almost 200 dead bears. So when you use bear spray, you're not killing bears. That's just, it's not, you know, whatever. That's what it is. Bear spray, no injury. All but 3 were injured. 365 of the firearms people. As far as slide injury, 3 with bear spray, 24 with firearms. Slide injury. Moderate, 0 with bear spray, 42. And this was hours of stay in the hospital is how that's based. Severe, again, bear spray 0, firearms 25. This is loss of limbs, face, you know, life-changing injuries. And as far as fatalities, we had 0 with bear spray and 17 with firearms. So I think that those numbers tell you a lot. And what it's saying is, look, you want to hunt, you want to kill animals, that's your business. You want to stay safe with bears, you better be paying attention to this. And for all the reasons that we're talking about, I mean, it's like jump shooting Godzilla. It's a real problem. They're just big, they're fast, and so forth. And I'm not going to show you this. These are fun. 2 reasons why firearms don't protect you. I don't think, can you see those? Can you guys see them? This is good. This is that one's a 550 caliber, which people carry. Yeah, that's a veritable cannon. The guy knocked out the window. And this guy here, this is another fun one here. Oops. Yeah, so I mean that is a problem. The guns are so powerful. Can you still see it over there? I don't think you can. Hold on. There we go. They're so powerful that people can't control them. Look, this guy's got a handgun. 454. This is the Alaska bear gun. And this guy's sitting at the range shooting it. Come on, shoot it. Yeah, so the gun just went that way. Yeah, so I mean, they're very, very difficult to control. So, you know, again, I don't have a thing on guns. It's just they don't work. Okay, so they don't work very well. Okay, so as far as the Alaska Bear Encounters database, a couple things we learned on that. The status is we've got 650 different confrontations, 82 variables. We have over 50,000 entries that we're analyzing right now, trying to extract from these, and we've done 5 peer-reviewed papers on them so far. We're going to get about 2 more. It doesn't matter, but it's, you know, we have spatial distributions of bear attacks in Alaska by species. But what was really cool about that, and the reason why I started this is people say, well, is it true that coastal brown bears are a lot easier? I mean, they're nicer than interior bears, and you know, or something like that. And I said, I mean, the conventional wisdom is in Alaska is the coastal brownies are pretty easygoing, and the assumption is it's because they're well fed. Okay, so I wanted to look at that assumption. So what I did was, I did a multivariate analysis, but what we found was that the number of bear attacks was inversely proportional to the number of bears. Now that's counterintuitive, and if you put a graph on there, what that says is the more bears there are, the less likelihood you'll be attacked. That's based on where the fatalities are, and that's basically right there, the number of incidents. So the less than 25, that's Denali, that's the North Slope, mean little buggers up there. And they have, and down on the end where there's hardly any attacks, that's Katmai. On this end, Kodiak Island. Bears just, I mean, you can't make them attack. Well, you can, but it's much less easy to do. The underlying assumption is this, that we looked at. And so the take-home message here is bears are not the same everywhere. Although it's unlikely you'll have a problem in Yellowstone, it's much more likely you'll have a problem in Yellowstone over the Katmai Coast, where when I go to bed, and John was there, you go to bed and you can count 35 grizzly bears. The reason is when bears, that all comes back to the social setting. When there's that kind of a food resource, that translates into 2 things: more bears and bigger bears. Lots more, bigger. I mean, the coast there, our estimate was 550 bears per 1,000 square kilometers, which is about the exact opposite of Yellowstone. It's 30 bears per square mile. Yellowstone's 1 bear per 30 square miles. It's a lot of bears. And so what happens is it doesn't pay to be this hair-triggered temperament among other bears. Like, run all over the place, I'm fighting you, But it doesn't work. So it's like, heck with that. So bears walk by each other, and basically they generalize that to humans. You can walk right by them. I don't recommend it, but you can do that. They don't even look at you. But I can promise you this, and I have taken data on this. When you watch hikers and bears, bears are paying 10 times more attention to other bears than they are to hikers. Why? Because they know what the other bear will do if it gets a chance. Hikers, they're not sure. So they just kind of watch them, but not much. They're kind, you know. So the point is, bear density, it's a kind of win-win thing. You eat your food there, I'll eat mine here. I'm not. So when things come out of the brush suddenly, it's another bear. I'm not going to worry. In Yellowstone, where the resources are much lower, it's resources. They actually tend to defend an area of resources. When a hiker blunders into that, we have more of an aggressive response at a much greater distance. So I also plotted on their charging distance as a function of bear density, and indeed, the average charge distance on the coastal areas was like 75 meters. In Denali, it was about 10 meters, or 400 meters. 400 was 250 to 400. My point is they were much more temperamental. So I don't know. That was a fun paper to write. Did you get the point on that? Okay. I'm beating a dead horse. So what we did here, another fun study, was we wanted to just throw out everything we'd ever heard about bears and said, okay, that's enough. You know, the bear books, they're fun to read, but again, the problem you get is this mix of just non-prioritized, do this, don't do this. You know, I mean, I've got a whole shelf of these things. They just drive me nuts. And so I decided that I would get to the bottom of it. So we did research on sight, sense, and sounds associated with human activity to see what should I say, naive bears did. So the first thing I did was I took a bear bell, tied it on a willow bush, and strung a piece of nylon, 100-pound test fishing line way up on this cliff. I was 120 feet up on a cliff, and there's a bear trail by a salmon stream. So it wasn't a matter of would I see a bear, it's just how many customers I'm going to get in the next hour. So they couldn't see this. So I didn't have a visual cue. So here comes the first bear. It's a mom and 2 cubs, and I felt kind of bad because they're the one cohort that gets beat up by everybody. You know, the mother's always like this all the time, you know, and the little cubs are just like it's, you know, they're just, you know, their own worst enemy. They don't pay attention. So here she comes, and I go, oh God, I feel bad. I'm in a blind. I pull the string. And I can hear it really good. And that mother, it was like watching bears on a video or something. I mean, like a TV screen and going up there. Hey, will they hear it? I mean, they had zero response. And I had a gradation of response from no visible response to an ear turn. You know, they got these old 360 ears. They just kind of turn them around to a head turn to stopping, you know, to then the more intense responses of bolting away or towards, as it might be. And that bear didn't do anything. And my first impression was, my gosh, it's a family of deaf bears. They're deaf. They're deaf. And I ran. The bear didn't do anything. It's like, what's wrong with that bear? That would scare me. And so I sat there and I thought, oh. So then I grabbed my pencil. I was taking data with it, and I snapped that. And that mom went, she was right on me. She couldn't see me because I'm in a camo blind. She heard that stick snap. So I sat back and go, oh. So I thought about it, and as we did experiments, we realized there's kind of 2 worlds of sounds. There's things that are biologically relevant. A stick snap could be an approaching other bear, a potential predator. It means movement nearby. Any bear sounds, they went crazy for those. You know, little jaw pops or little low-level growls. That'd really unhinge them. Wolves, they did not. I mean, there's no love lost between those 2 species. You know, they fight over carcasses, and I mean, they kill each other. So when you did a little wolf, just a ruff, 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 like that. One day my researchers came in from the field. They go, God, the bear climbed up the tree and pulled the speaker down because we used. So what are you doing? Of course it's going to do that. I said, you just get a response and go, wow, it was so cool. We let it play. The bear goes on. It's like, good grief. I said, when you do that again, you're out of a job. So I had, not too many speakers, but so we played a whole suite of sounds, and it really did kind of shake out. Bear bells, about, well, I've got some data on that here somewhere. We did, so we'd play sounds like this one here. Here's a bear bell. I mean, you've heard it. Oh, you can hear it. It's this. And we had air horn. We had a lot of stuff, and it was fun. So we did that. We also did scent trials where I built these deals. I could put scent on pads, put them in the ground. They could pull them out, but they couldn't get the scent. They couldn't get the object, but they could get the scent. I mean, they couldn't grab sponge soap with Natrapel or Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. They like that stuff. And so, did you have a question? Oh, goodness. So, oh my gosh, these bears would go nuts for that stuff. So we put all this in, and you know, I had this guy helping me, and he was really a little bit afraid of these bears. Of course, there's 100 of them around, so it's kind of edgy. But he goes down to the river and to wash his hair, and he wants an escort, which kind of annoyed us all. And, oh, okay, take it done, take him down there. So they went down there, and when he comes back, I'm sitting in camp cross-legged, and all of a sudden it's like I get hit with this floral strawberry bouquet. Well, jeez, I said, Carol, what were you doing? He goes, he's real nervous. Why? What do you mean? I said, you smell like a 200-pound strawberry. He goes, what's wrong with that? I said, dude. I said, let's put it this way. If I gave you bacon and egg shampoo with French toast cream rinse, you're going to pour that on your head? He goes, oh my God, oh my God. You want to pull his hair off. I said, I mean, why would you do that? Similarly, we used a lot of this stuff. It's like, why would you dope yourself up in bear country like, you know, some big scented thing? That's stupid. So we were trying out a bunch of scents. That was really interesting. We got the highest response rate to all scents. And what was interesting in Alaska, they use like ammonia. That'll teach them. Oh God, they love that stuff. And I think what it is if you could flip your olfaction over for your eyes, and scents now became a visual, like a Coast Guard orange smoke flare, and instead of a smoke flare, it's ammonia or it's pine sol, which they wash their floats out with on their planes, or it's you know, the shampoo you're using. What do you think they're gonna do? They go, whoa! They walk right over to that stuff. That was really fun. So we got into. I mean, does it mean you can't smell? No, but it means you need to be aware of what scents you're telegraphing into the world. Why would you take Dr. Bronner's pepper? What do you want to smell like, a 200-pound peppermint stick? That's not really a good idea in bear country. The other thing we did is gold. We had all kinds of targets, because I noticed whenever I put up my V23 back in the day, the North Face mountain tent, I'd have bears come up. Get out of here! You know, it's like you put it up on a hill, and it's like, oh, they'd be walking around and go, hey, what is that? And so I had bears come up and say, get out of here! You know, leave us alone! And then we realized when we went to camo covers, they obviously there's no visual cue, and does it mean they won't come around? No, but it means you're not saying, here we are, you know. So that was all kind of interesting, and it's all consistent with the message of just be aware of what you're telegraphing out in bear country. Okay, couple thoughts. We're going to wrap up here. These are data I can show you later, but the best one's the bear bell. No responses. That giant tower there. They just, you think about it, would they pay attention to a golden crowned sparrow going, no. Running water? No. Bear bell? See, people assume that bears are humans in a little bear suit. Oh God, that's a bear, that doesn't belong here. No, you can train them. You can train them. I mean, you can get them to dance, juggle, ride bikes, for crying out loud. I can train them that this means a hiker, but somebody's got to do that. And I think, so the base assumption is it's novel, it doesn't fit. Wrong. So that was good. This is a woman screaming and running from a bear. I want to wrap up with one point on this, and then we'll move on to something more fun. Okay, so you know, I had people come to me and say, oh, you know, my wife is so terrified of bears, she won't even go out and enjoy Alaska. I mean, that's horrible. You know, that's wrong. So I put paranoia is a survival trait of humans, and basically I love this quote. This is by E.O. Wilson from Harvard. He says this. He says, we're not just afraid of predators, we're transfixed by them, prone to weave stories and fables and chatter endlessly about them, because this fascination creates preparedness, and preparedness survival. In a deeply tribal sense, we love our monsters. And then he goes on and he talks, he says, what is it about bears that makes them so repellent and fascinating? The answer in retrospect is deceptively simple. Their ability to move quietly, their extraordinary speed for an animal so large and seemingly clumsy, and the threat of claw and jaw. It pays in elementary survival to pay attention to bears and to respond emotionally to them, to go beyond ordinary caution and fear. And on this last, there's a picture of him. I just love that guy. Got a man crush on him now. I like him. A bromance. So, he's just so smart. I'm not that smart. So he says this. He says, the brain evolved into its present form over a period of 2 million years, from the time of Homo habilis to the late Stone Age of Homo sapiens, during which people existed in hunter-gatherer bands in intimate contact with the natural environment. Bears mattered. The smell of water, the hum of a bee, the directional bend of the plant stalk. These things mattered. The naturalist's trance was adapted. The glimpse of one small animal hidden in the grass could make the difference between eating and going hungry that night. And a sweet sense of horror, the shivery fascination with monsters and creeping things that so delights us today, even in the sterile hearts of our cities, could see you through to the next morning. Organisms are the natural stuff of metaphor and ritual. Although the evidence is far from in, the brain appears to have kept its old capacities, its channeled quickness. We stay alert and alive in the vanished forests of the world. And so I tell people, okay, so the key points here is fear of bears is definitely disproportional to the actual threat they pose. Okay, so that's okay. We need to recognize where it originates. It's part of the brainstem. They did PET scans. I know I'm over time. I'm going to quit. But they show people pictures like flowers, and this part of the brain go bzzz, and they show a picture of their girlfriend or wife, bzzz, whatever. And they show them predators like snakes. The brainstem, it's back there, snakes, bears, You know, it's like it's a basal, primal thing. So helping people understand that that's okay. You know, you're the end result of a couple million years of evolution. But we're smart enough. We are on top of this. We can deal with this. And I think as instructors, that's your job, is to help them. We can control our fear of bears. I don't know if you have people like that, but we can control that, and we have ways to minimize that, okay? So I could go more hours, but we're going to call this part done, then we're going to do some exercise. So let's call it good for now. Thank you.
Right out here to use the training bear. We're going to use some inert bear spray. I still wouldn't hang out downwind if I were you, but you can do what you want. So can we have 4 people that want to go first? Oh, come on. I'll go.
Yeah. Okay, so all we're doing here is, what are we doing?
Team of 4 is coming up. You tell them what to do.
Okay, yeah. So not a bad exercise when you're in bear country is to take a minute with them. You know, when I'm out with my research crews or with people, mostly it's researchers, right? So they're college students and I can threaten them, and they understand with Boy Scouts, forget it. They don't take threats. The thing is, we try to practice. So let's say this was a camp right here. We set up a camp and then we take a few minutes and say, okay, here's our defendable space. Because we're in the wilderness, we want to see bears, we want to see wolves. And a highlight of many of my trips is just sitting quietly. Big grizzlies walk by and not go out with pots of meth. Hey, just leave them alone. But let them, they know you're there. But we sit quietly side by side. So we decide, let's say that mowed edge so we'll pick a distance that we feel safe, that we can let bears walk through. If they come inside that distance, then we're going to start with low-level hazing. The lowest level, you don't throw the big monkey at them at first. What we do is I say, hey, you guys, we got a bear coming in here. Why don't you come over here? So you come up, and you have your deterrents, and we're going to just get in line. Just string out. So the bear's right there.
Claire, you're in the middle.
So we're going to stand here. The lowest level of hazing is this. Just intimidating them with your presence. That's a lot. I really don't think you're going to have a problem. It might come closer. Now, if it comes closer, the next level would be, what would you think?
Get ready.
Okay, so you're going to have your deterrents out, and I'm going to have the wedge off, which is good to practice. But the next level was we might go, hey, like that. Almost always when you vocalize, it's okay to yell because it's far away, but I'd say, hey, they'll always do this. They'll stop just like that and they'll look. Now the more bold ones will just put their head down and act like, yeah. And so then at that point, as I was telling John, we actually have flares that we use, and we'll shoot a screamer off. But in every camp I've been in with hundreds of grizzly bears, if you stand in line and you just stand there and go, hey, they take off. I don't know, Brian's done a bunch of it too. I don't know if your experience here in Wyoming is like that.
Yeah, the more people, the better.
That in itself. Another key thing I didn't bring up is, I don't know, and Brian knows a lot, this guy knows a lot, but my point here is I think that the presence of humans is much more of a deterrent than the food and things you have, okay? So they're risk evaluators. Every bear that's coming to my camp, they're all cautiously curious. And you'll notice, I've scared them pretty good. And we use electric fences in Alaska because there's so many of them.
that we just don't even want them on our tents. But when they hit the electric fence, they're really frightened and they run away. Because they're cautious, they're curious. I mean, it's not like I've got an elk carcass hanging here now. It's a little different with hunters. But that's what we do. Now, if you guys were hiking, like I explained, as a group, and I know you're all aware that Notes had a situation like that last year, where, I mean, it's easy to quarterback coach, you know, what happened, but we'll say what should happen. Again, if I'm hiking, I have my deterrent handy. It's got to be handy. It can't, I mean, that's evident. It can't come out of a pack. So it could be here. It's kind of annoying to me. I could put on a pack strap. This comes off. I could put on a pack strap. I could have it on my belt, but it's got to be somewhere handy. If I'm going into a place where there's a probability of a bear, you know, for me, and this is the difference between guns and bears, is it's nothing to have this in my hand. That's nothing. You know, I mean, I can have that, and if a bear suddenly appeared, I've got it in less than a second. So it just makes sense to pull it out, and then maybe as I get closer to a place of concern, hey, sort of thing, and walk up a little more. Now you realize the river's pretty noisy there, so you know, like if it was a salmon stream, I'd really be making some noise. And they've got good ears, you know, they can hear good. So they're, hey, like that, they got you, and then you'll hear them walking off, that kind of thing. So that's the one thing. Let's see, John, what are we doing next here?
Okay, so then we'll let them decide whether it's spraying. And if you haven't played with bear spray before, you might want to practice pulling the safety clip off and putting it back on a few times. Got to get the hang of that, so that you can maybe do that without thinking about it too hard.
So we're going to have these for hiking like you would on one of your trips. They're coming up this meadow. They're trying to go to that far peak over there. And Claire's going to be in the front. And she's going to be the first one to see the bear here. Now, the point of this is, this bear spray, this stuff is inert. They've got a big label on it. It says, well, they don't. It says inert, but it usually says, oh, there it is. It says only sprays 10 to 12 feet. You can get away with 20 maybe. And some people have said, you know, in the paper I published, this comes out of the nozzle at 75 miles an hour, so it's throwing it pretty good. But, you know, I see this crap out there. It says, make sure you're upwind. Oh yeah, right. Hold it. This is stupid.
It happens to be upwind, which is too bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
that's not the
I mean, so I know the range of this. So as a hiking group, I tell my students, I say, you know, you've got about 20 feet. And outside at 20 feet, let the bear figure it out. But you know, once it crosses that line, then I give it a 1 second blast and then see what the bear does. That was perfect timing. Very good. She works for me now. Yeah, what I like to do is go in a bunch of people. I say this stuff will really immobilize everybody. Be really careful. Oh my God! You should see her run for the deterrent. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad in the university. I feel kind of bad. No, what's going to happen is Claire's going to come up the hill. She's the first one. She'll say bear. What we want to see is the rest. She's going to stop, ready her deterrent. As these guys are down slope, they should be getting them ready and coming up to stand beside her, not running that way. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you with younger people or even adults. It's really hard to stop your legs. You need to practice it. So so they're going to come up the hill. They're going to ready the deterrents and they're going to stand with her. And then we're going to see what now if the bear crosses 20 feet, then she could spray it. I mean, I wouldn't have 4 people spraying the bear, but let's face it, if it was charging, I suppose you all would.
So we're going to start in line, and so you rehearse the choreography. Okay.
After a hard day of hiking.
So we're going
I'm tired.
Woo! Matt, get some corn up there.
Oh, there's bear.
Oh, line up. Okay, but you know, we all laugh, but where the young got hurt, that's not what they did. And they may have been, I think they were spread out more. What you want, though, is to ingrain it in them. It's okay to spread out. I don't know how far you allow them on your trips to space out, but I would assume you try to keep them kind of together. And if you're in really good bear country, you know, you're just going to have to get over being singles. You got to stay together. say I have to shoot them with dart guns.
So the trick
So
is to
they're-
decide at what distance you would actually spray it. So obviously if you unload that can when it's 100 feet away, good luck when it's...
A couple other things. I don't know, again, what Brian thinks, but let's say you buy a can of spray. Don't be doing this. Is there any in there? Oh yeah, it's good to go today. Oh yeah, tomorrow it's good to go today. Come on, the can's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Until by the time the bear shows up, it's like... So this is a product. I've asked Pride Johnson. He owns the company. Originally the seals in the 70s were leaking. They were just getting the technology down. But these things are pressurized. If you want to do it once, I mean, if you want to do just like that, then you're going to take soapy water and clear this out. Because if you don't, it's going to get residue on your finger, and then your face will be burning. I wouldn't even do it once. It's a pressurized product. If it leaks, believe me, you'll know it. But I don't want, if you keep doing this, it's just getting smaller. And I don't know if Knowles has a policy, but we used to have one. We put them on a scale. If they weighed less than 3/4 of their weight, we just get them off. I mean, I'd be a cat mine. I mean, at Brooks Camp, there's like 70 brown bears there, and there's a big bin. They're going, that one doesn't have enough. It's like, gee. I mean, there's like 25 bucks back then. I mean, how cheap can you get? Throw those away and get some new ones. But I would not be spraying them like this. Sorry, John.
And I have a case of the real stuff that expired that the RM wanted to get rid of. And if you want some to just squirt and play with, that's what it's for.
Yeah, you could do it, but
we aren't going to do it here today, though.
yeah, don't.
That's when you want to be upwind. When you're
Yeah,
practicing.
but it's not about, like my kids, like every summer, they take like the case of bear spray from the RM and just go spray it behind our chicken coop. And it gets all over them and they're fine.
This stuff getting wet? No. Yeah, no, you don't. Mac was asking if this stuff getting all wet and everything matters. No, it's good to go. But it is a problem if I would not let people for two reasons. One is you don't want residues on stuff. It's not like it's going to draw bears from miles around, but it's terrible stuff. If it was near your camp, it's like spraying bologna on a bush. I wouldn't do that. I mean, it really does. In Alaska, we have come.
Let's have another group of 4 get set up.
Dead run.
4 people
for this stuff. So yeah.
Let's go. We need 4 more people to go through the next group. We want more people to go through to show just rehearsing the choreography and all this.
Yeah, Anna was asking how many sprays are in there. They say about 7.5 seconds worth. Okay, so the other thing that Pride told me is because of lawyers, they have a 3-year expiration.
You guys go ahead
chemicals are all stable. They really don't go
get
bad.
maybe 50 feet
So,
from it. I would call bear.
Now, here's another thing I wanted to show you. This
at
is
some
my
point I'll
fake
pull the bear,
shotgun.
just don't let it hit you in the ankle.
All right, go ahead. Ready? So here's the problem. Let's have somebody who wants to be my shotgun guy after these guys.
What?
Somebody's got to be my shotgun person.
I'll shoot you.
Okay, come on out. Okay, so here's the problem. Again, guns are great, but the problem is, I don't know how, this is just plastic. All you got to do is you got to pump it. Okay. So Annie's going to do this thing where she's hiking. Of course, here everybody's pretty ready, right? So you kind of know it's coming. But if you're hiking and you have this over your shoulder, okay, so show me how you get it off and pump it to shoot a bear. Okay. Now there's a red S underneath this. Get it right.
Shotgun Annie.
Okay, so in Alaska on the stuff Steve Herrero and I published, 50% of all the encounters with guns happened at the first time they saw the bear was at 10 meters. 10 meters, that's 50%. If you go to, let's see, 15 meters, that was 80% of the data. So right here,
Let's get 4 more people on standby.
So right there, come on up, stand right there. So when the bear runs, you gotta shoot it. But you're ready right now. But you're not out. Did you even pull the trigger? Okay, so that's a bit of a problem now. Here's another example you might do with students, which I like. Can I do one more before we do you guys? Okay, you want to do one more? Or somebody? Okay, toss me a can of spray. And who likes to be a runner? A bear.
run.
Okay, come, Allie. And this is a safer thing.
Oh, I'm right here. Oh, okay.
Now, I learned the hard way. So, here. This is a good exercise with students too.
How's it going?
That was there, and then you spring around fast enough. Okay. So, show us how you get it out of that. Okay. So, put it all back in. Now, what Allie's going to do, come right back here, and she can't. Believe me, you'll see why I do this. Okay, now you guys move so she can run that way. And why you don't know, we're just talking. When I signal, you take off running. Okay. And as soon as she takes off running, you're going to go ahead and just put a burst that way.
Okay.
Okay, so
First this time.
yeah. Go.
No.
Well, that would help. Okay, the point is, okay, so I kind of surprised her, but, okay, she's kind of working on the protocol. Let's do it one more time. But the point was, why I do this exercise is, if it's a little hard.
Okay, I'm totally ready this time.
Okay, so the thing is, okay, stop. So she sprayed about right there. Yeah. My point in this exercise is, a bear could have been right there before, and it would have been to her before. She needn't get it out, okay? Now, if we had people running, they'd be spraying them in the face, and it doesn't work, but it shows you that an animal that can at full on do 44 feet per second. My point in all of this is this is not very good. It's good to be available, but if you're in a high risk area, you've got to have it in your hand. Now, put it in your hand and try it with this.
And Tom and I have spent hours with the bear spray in our hand, safety off, like against willows. Like an hour, it's just like hiking that way.
So Annie's now ready for the bear. Okay, so she nailed it really close. The point is with this little exercise, it's just to impress on people that in the pack it's completely out of the question. On the hip in here is useful, but if you're in somewhere where there's a probability, it's got to be in your hand to be any use. That's all that is. Running at people doesn't. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to spray them in the face. So this could have a damage.
I have a question about if the initial encounter is within that range.
Yeah.
Should you blow it right away, or should you start with grouping up?
Well, I group and then see what the bear's intent is. That sounds kind of vague, but yeah, I'd yell bear, and everybody's going to come running with their spray ready.
Bear spray, you could count on you with that bear spray more than you could count on everyone else doing the correct choreography.
For what it's worth, I was in Alaska once and I heard these bears fighting. It was a lot of bears, like that, and I made a bear cast of the foot. It's something I was doing, so I didn't want to leave. And it was around the court. Pretty soon here comes this probably 4 or 5 year old, 300 or 400 pound bear. It's like he's the one that got his butt whooped. And then he saw me and he just takes off at a dead run. I go, oh crap. I didn't have any bear spray handy, so I reach my pack, I pull out a stick of Maglite, I go, uh-oh. But the point is that I just stood my ground, the bear stopped about me to that box, and he just stood and looked, and then saw the white thing there, and he kind of sniffed and walked off. I mean, I would have sprayed him at that close, but as it was, it resolved, and by the time he figured it out, I had it out. Really bad idea, but the point is, Herrero and myself both, where we see people standing and the bear charging, there's a percentage of them that do stop, and so that's all the more reason to be ready. But if they come within that 20 feet, I spray them. I mean, I'd spray them. The stuff's not that expensive. I would hit them. Okay, go back to your...
So one thing we want to emphasize that for stuff that's potentially high stress, it's good to physically rehearse the procedure. And so we got a bunch of this, and we want teams to just come up and physically practice this. It's like you get people to physically practice what you do with CPR more than you give them chalk talks about it. So we want you to just rehearse the moves. So next team, come on up.
And John, I was talking to Rick, but it sounds like we're going to get this stuff at branches, so we can do this with
I know Alaska has some inert stuff.
What about Yukon?
Yeah, you can get that from Countersalt for $8 a can.
Something like that. I don't know if Yukon has it or not.
I use it.
You could also do this with the expired stuff, but like I love like gas chamber training and all that stuff, and some people like aren't converts to that yet. Okay, next team. Okay. Beautiful day. Okay, next.
Go get him.
And if you're the brand, feel free to have someone do it a few times. Even if you just hold the garden hose and spray it with that. Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna spray you in your face.
Beautiful day, huh? I love Alaska.
It's a beautiful day.
What a beautiful day.
Yeah, I did a great
No, no, you.
Like, I feel like, yeah.